Maria, what is that child doing here? This is a board meeting about our company's survival, not some daycare center where you bring your kids. Victoria Whitmore's words dripped with condescension as she gestured dismissively at 10-year-old Marcus Washington, who stood quietly beside his mother in the glass conference room. Whitmore Tech was dying. 3 days since their entire system crashed. $500 million lost daily. Every computer froze. Every transaction is dead. Victoria had hired the best. MIT graduates, Silicon Valley legends, cybersecurity experts charging $10,000 per hour. All failed. Her Harvard MBA meant nothing now. The board was gathering to fire her. Employees would lose everything. A tech empire built over 10 years, destroyed by code she couldn't understand. But salvation sometimes wears the most unexpected face. Have you ever dismissed someone as completely useless, only to discover they held the key to everything you needed? The crisis had started 72 hours ago when every screen at Whitmore Tech went black simultaneously. Not a gradual slowdown, not a partial outage, complete digital death. Victoria built this company from nothing. Started in her garage 12 years ago, now employing over 3,000 people across 15 countries. Her proprietary cloud platform powered everything from banking systems to hospital networks. When Whitmore Tech died, pieces of the digital world died with it. The financial bleeding was catastrophic. $500 million per day in lost revenue, penalty fees for breached contracts, lawsuits already being filed. The stock had crashed 80% in 3 days. But money wasn't even the worst part. Patient records locked in hospitals, banking transactions frozen mid-transfer, small businesses unable to process payments, real people suffering because her systems failed. Victoria had called in every favor, hired every expert. The response team filled her conference room like a war council. Dr. James Carter, former Apple security chief, now charges $50,000 per day. Sarah Martinez, the MIT professor who'd written the book on system recovery. David Park, the legendary hacker who'd saved 3 Fortune 500 companies. All of them staring at the same black screens, typing frantically, achieving nothing. The corruption goes deeper than we initially thought, Dr. Carter reported, his confidence from day one now completely gone. Whatever hit your system, it's unlike anything we've encountered. Victoria watched him struggle with code that should have been elementary for someone of his reputation. These were supposed to be the brightest minds in technology. Their credentials filled walls. Their hourly rates could buy cars. Yet here they sat, defeated by problems a computer science student might solve. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent years building Whitmore Tech on the foundation of meritocracy, hired only from top universities, demanded perfect GPAs, trusted only proven track records. Now those same standards were failing her when she needed them most. Maria Washington moved quietly through the chaos, refilling coffee cups and emptying trash bins. She'd worked for Victoria for 5 years, cleaning the penthouse office twice weekly. Never complained, never asked for raises, never spoke unless spoken to. Victoria barely noticed her existence most days. Maria was part of the furniture, background noise in the important business of running a tech empire. The woman's son occasionally came along during school breaks, a skinny kid who sat in corners playing handheld games while his mother worked. Victoria had never bothered learning his name. Just another distraction in an already busy world. "Ma'am, the backup servers are showing the same corruption," Sarah Martinez announced, her voice tight with frustration. "Whatever did this, it spread through every connected system. It's like digital cancer." Victoria felt her chest tighten. The backup servers were supposed to be isolated, protected, untouchable. If they were compromised too, then nothing was safe. The media had caught wind of the story. News vans lined the street below, tech reporters calling every hour, competitors circling like vultures, ready to steal clients the moment Whitmore Tech officially died. Her phone buzzed constantly. Board members demanded answers she didn't have. Clients threatening lawsuits. Investors asking if their money was gone forever. The worst calls came from employees. Ordinary people who'd trusted her with their careers. Families depending on paychecks that might stop coming. Health insurance that might disappear. Retirement plans that could evaporate if the company collapsed. 3,000 jobs hanging by threads made of code no one could fix. "Victoria, we need to discuss contingency plans," said board member Robert Hayes, his tone funeral serious. "If we can't restore systems by tomorrow, we need to consider bankruptcy proceedings." The word hit like a physical blow. Bankruptcy. The death certificate for everything she'd built. Dr. Carter looked up from his laptop, defeat written across his face. "I'm sorry, but I think we need to accept that this might be beyond current recovery methods. The damage is too extensive." Victoria stared at the black screens surrounding her. Thousands of hours of code, millions of lines of programming, years of innovation. All of it was reduced to digital graveyards. She'd hired the best minds money could buy, and they were telling her it was hopeless. But what happens when the experts admit they don't have the answers? When credentials and experience hit their limits? When the impossible becomes the only option left? The silence in the conference room felt like a funeral. Dr. Carter closed his laptop with a defeated click. Sarah Martinez shook her head at her tablet. David Park just stared at the ceiling like he was questioning his entire career. Victoria stood up slowly, her legs feeling weak. The weight of 3,000 jobs, billions in client assets, and her life's work pressed down on her shoulders. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think we need to accept the truth. We're out of options." The words tasted like poison in her mouth. "Call the bankruptcy lawyers. Draft the employee termination letters. We'll make the announcement tomorrow morning." Victoria's hands trembled as she reached for her phone. 12 years of building this company, and it ends because of code we can't understand. Board member Robert Hayes nodded grimly. "I'll contact the insurance companies about the liability claims." Dr. Carter packed his equipment. "I'm sorry, Victoria. In 30 years of cybersecurity, I've never seen corruption this complete. It's like the system was designed to self-destruct." That's when a small voice cut through the despair. "Excuse me, can I look at the computer?" Every head turned. Marcus Washington stood in the corner where his mother had tried to make him invisible. The 10-year-old boy stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the dead screens with genuine curiosity. Victoria blinked. She'd completely forgotten the child was still there. "What did you say?" she asked, certain she'd misheard. "The computer screens," Marcus repeated, pointing at the wall of black monitors. "Can I see what's wrong with them?" The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter. Dr. Carter chuckled and shook his head. Sarah Martinez smiled like she'd just heard a cute joke. "Kid, these are enterprise-level systems," David Park said condescendingly. "This isn't a Nintendo game." Victoria felt a spike of irritation. The last thing she needed was some child playing pretend computer expert while her company died. "Marcus, honey, come here," Maria whispered urgently, reaching for her son's arm. "These people are very busy." But Marcus didn't move. He stared at the screens with an intensity that seemed odd for a 10-year-old. "I know it's not a game," he said quietly, "but I see computers crash all the time when I'm coding. Sometimes the problem is really simple, and grown-ups just miss it because they're thinking too hard." The laughter stopped. Victoria studied the boy's face. There was something in his eyes, not the playful curiosity of childhood, but the focused attention of someone who actually understood what he was looking at. "You code?" Dr. Carter asked, his tone shifting from amusement to mild interest. "Yeah, I learned from YouTube. I make little programs and games." Marcus glanced at his mother nervously. "Mom doesn't know how much time I spend on it." Maria looked mortified. "Marcus, stop bothering these people. They have important work." "Wait." Victoria held up her hand. Something desperate was stirring in her chest. Maybe it was delirium from 3 days without sleep. Maybe it was the madness of a drowning person grabbing any rope. But what did she have to lose? "You think you might see something our experts missed?" she asked. Marcus nodded seriously. "Maybe." "Can I try?" Dr. Carter started to object, but Victoria cut him off. 5 minutes. Give him 5 minutes to look." The boy walked toward the main computer terminal with the confidence of someone who belonged there. But could a 10-year-old really succeed where MIT graduates had failed? And what would it mean if he did? Marcus approached the main terminal like he was walking up to meet a friend. While the adults watched with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, he pulled up a chair and sat down in front of the black screen that had defeated the best minds in technology. "Can you show me the error logs?" he asked, his small fingers already moving across the keyboard with surprising familiarity. Dr. Carter reluctantly pulled up the diagnostic screens. Thousands of lines of red error messages cascaded down the monitor like digital blood. The site had been giving the experts headaches for 3 days. Marcus studied the code for exactly 37 seconds. Then he pointed to a single line buried deep in the chaos. "There," he said simply. "That's wrong." Sarah Martinez leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "What's wrong with it?" "That's standard syntax." "No, it's not." Marcus's voice carried the patient tone of a teacher explaining something obvious. "You have a semicolon there, but you need a colon. See? The function is trying to define a variable, not end a statement." The room went dead silent. Dr. Carter stared at the line of code Marcus was pointing to. His face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, then growing horror as he realized what he was seeing. That's a syntax error," he whispered. "A basic, fundamental syntax error." "But we checked the syntax," David Park protested, pulling out his laptop. "We ran automated checks, manual reviews." "You checked the new code," Marcus interrupted politely. "But this error is in the old foundation code, the part that's been working for years. When the system got overloaded 3 days ago, it tried to access this old function and—" He gestured at the screens around them. "Everything crashed because of a missing colon?" Victoria felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. "Are you telling me that my entire company almost died because of punctuation?" Marcus nodded seriously. "It happens a lot. When I'm making games, sometimes I spend hours looking for bugs in complicated stuff, and then I find out I just forgot a comma somewhere simple." Dr. Carter's hands shook as he made the correction. 1 character. Changing a semicolon to a colon. 30 years of cybersecurity experience, and he'd been defeated by the digital equivalent of a typo. "Initializing system restart," the computer announced in a cheerful voice that sounded almost mocking after 3 days of silence. Screens began flickering to life throughout the room. Data streams started flowing. Error messages disappeared one by one, replaced by the familiar blue glow of functioning systems. Within minutes, Whitmore Tech was breathing again. "System restored," Sarah Martinez read from her tablet, her voice hollow with disbelief. "All primary functions online. Database integrity intact." Victoria stared at Marcus, who was now swinging his legs from the chair like any normal 10-year-old. "How did you see that when they couldn't?" "I guess because I'm used to making mistakes," Marcus said with a shy smile. "When you're learning to code from YouTube, you mess up a lot. So you get really good at finding the simple stuff that breaks everything." Dr. Carter stood frozen, staring at his laptop screen showing system after system coming back online. His reputation, his decades of experience, his $50,000 daily rate, all humbled by a child who learned programming from free internet videos. "The corruption patterns we were seeing," David Park said slowly, "they weren't corruption at all. They were cascade failures from this one syntax error propagating through the entire network." "Like dominoes," Marcus added helpfully. One falls the wrong way, and they all fall. Victoria felt a strange mixture of relief and embarrassment flooding through her. 3 days of panic. Millions in consultant fees. The best experts money could buy. And the solution had been sitting in her conference room the entire time, wearing a Pokemon t-shirt and sneakers with untied laces. But her relief was short-lived. As the systems came online, new alerts began flashing on the monitors. "Wait," Marcus said, his smile fading as he studied the scrolling data. "There's something else wrong." The adults tensed. "What do you mean?" Victoria asked. Marcus pointed to streams of code flowing across the screen. "The system is working now, but look at this." "Someone's been inside your computers, like recently inside. This isn't old code." Dr. Carter rushed to his terminal. "What are you seeing?" "These file access logs," Marcus said, his 10-year-old voice suddenly very serious. "Someone was downloading your data while your system was broken. A lot of data. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. You're saying someone was stealing our information while we were trying to fix the crash?" Victoria's voice was barely controlled. Marcus nodded gravely. "And I think they're still here." As if summoned by his words, new error messages began appearing on screens throughout the room. But these weren't random system failures. These were targeted, deliberate attacks happening in real time. "The syntax error wasn't an accident," Marcus said quietly. "Someone put it there on purpose. To crash your system. And while you were trying to fix it," he didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood. Whitmore Tech hadn't just suffered a technical failure. They'd been the victims of a sophisticated cyber attack. And whoever was responsible was still inside their systems, still stealing, still destroying. The experts who'd spent 3 days failing to find a simple punctuation error now faced a much more dangerous opponent. But they weren't alone anymore. Could a 10-year-old who learned coding from YouTube really help them catch a professional cybercriminal? And what would happen when the attacker realized they'd been discovered? The celebration lasted exactly 47 seconds. Marcus watched streams of data flowing across multiple monitors, his young face growing more concerned by the minute. "The person who's stealing your stuff is really good," he said quietly. "They're taking everything. Customer files, money records, secret company plans." Victoria's relief vanished like smoke. "How much have they taken?" "A lot." Marcus scrolled through access logs with the fluency of someone far older than 10. "And they're still downloading right now. Look." He pointed to a real-time data transfer showing gigabytes of information flowing out of Whitmore Tech's servers to an unknown location. Customer databases, financial records, proprietary software code, years of business secrets hemorrhaging into the digital darkness. Dr. Carter pulled up his own monitoring tools, his face pale. "The transfer rate is massive, professional grade. This isn't some amateur hacker." "How long has this been going on?" Victoria demanded. Marcus studied the logs with the methodical attention of a detective. "The big downloads started 3 days ago when the system crashed, but there are smaller ones going back." He paused, counting. 6 months. Maybe longer. The room felt like it was shrinking. 6 months of systematic data theft. How much damage had already been done? How many clients would sue when they discovered their confidential information had been stolen? "Can we stop the transfer?" Sarah Martinez asked urgently. "I can try," Marcus said, his small hands moving across the keyboard. "But if I cut them off too fast, they might delete everything in your system out of spite. Bad hackers do that when they get caught." Victoria watched a 10-year-old navigate cybersecurity decisions that could determine whether her company survived or died. The irony was almost too absurd to process. "What do you recommend?" she asked, the words feeling surreal as they left her mouth. Marcus bit his lip, thinking hard. "I need to trace where they're sending the data first. Then maybe I can block them without them knowing, like sneaking up on them. That's advanced network forensics, David Park said, his skepticism warring with growing respect. It requires tools and techniques that take years to master. I learned some of it from hacking games, Marcus replied matter-of-factly. And YouTube has videos about everything. While the adults exchanged glances of disbelief, Marcus began typing with increasing speed. Windows opened and closed on the screen as he navigated through network protocols and security systems with an intuitive understanding that defied his age. Found something, he announced. The hacker isn't just stealing your data. They're also messing with your customer accounts, moving money around, making it look like you're stealing from people. Victoria's blood went cold. What kind of money movement? Small amounts from lots of accounts. A few dollars here, a few there, but it adds up to... Marcus paused, calculating. About $2 million over the past 6 months. They're framing us for embezzlement, Robert Hayes said grimly. When customers discover money missing from their accounts, they'll sue us for everything. The scope of the attack was becoming clear. This wasn't just data theft. It was a corporate assassination. Someone wanted to destroy Whitmore Tech completely. Reputation, finances, and future. Can you trace where the stolen money went? Victoria asked. Marcus was already working on it, his concentration absolute. It's tricky. They bounced it through lots of different banks and countries, but I think... He stopped typing abruptly. Uh-oh. What's wrong? Dr. Carter leaned over his shoulder. They know we're watching them. Marcus pointed to the screen where the data transfer had suddenly accelerated. They're downloading everything super fast now, and they're starting to delete files. Critical system files began disappearing in real time. Customer databases, backup servers, financial records. The hacker was scorching the earth, determined to leave nothing behind. How much time do we have? Victoria asked. Maybe 10 minutes before they wipe everything, Marcus said, his young voice tight with concentration. I can try to block them, but they'll probably fight back. Like a computer war. The adults stood frozen, watching an elementary school student prepare for digital combat against a professional cybercriminal. 3 days ago, Victoria would have called this scenario impossible. Now it was her only hope. Marcus, Maria said quietly from the corner where she'd been silently watching her son. Maybe this is too dangerous. What if they heard our computer at home? Mom, I have to try, Marcus replied without taking his eyes off the screen. These people are really bad. They're hurting lots of families. Victoria looked at the boy's determined face and felt something she'd rarely experienced in her corporate career: humility. This child understood the stakes better than most adults she knew. What do you need from us? She asked. Just let me work, Marcus said simply. And maybe someone should call the police. When I catch this hacker, you're going to want them arrested. But could a 10-year-old really win a direct confrontation with a professional cybercriminal? And what would happen if he failed? Marcus cracked his knuckles like a pianist preparing for a concert. The motion looked almost comical on his small hands, but his expression was deadly serious as he stared at the screens showing real-time digital warfare. Okay, first I need to slow them down without them knowing, he said, opening multiple command windows with practiced efficiency. Like putting invisible roadblocks in their path. His fingers flew across the keyboard with a rhythm that mesmerized the watching adults. Lines of code appeared and disappeared faster than most people could read. Dr. Carter tried to follow along but quickly gave up. The boy was operating at a level that transcended formal training. What exactly are you doing? Sarah Martinez asked. I'm making their downloads go through extra steps, Marcus explained while continuing to type. Like making them walk through a really long hallway instead of taking the elevator. They won't notice right away, but it'll buy us time. Within minutes, the data transfer rate dropped by 60%. The hacker continued stealing files, unaware that their connection had been deliberately throttled by a 10-year-old. Brilliant, David Park whispered. That's advanced traffic shaping. Where did you learn that? Minecraft servers, Marcus said without looking up. When too many people try to connect at once, you have to slow them down or the whole game crashes. Victoria watched in fascination as her son applied gaming logic to corporate cybersecurity. Every technique he used came from playground experience rather than textbook theory, yet it worked with surgical precision. But the hacker wasn't passive. They're adapting, Marcus said, frowning at the new activity on his screen. They figured out something was wrong and started using different routes. Smart. The data transfer rate jumped back up as the attacker found workarounds to Marcus's roadblocks. Files began disappearing even faster than before. How much time did we buy? Victoria asked. Maybe 5 more minutes, but now I know more about how they think. Marcus opened a new set of programs. Time for Phase 2, which is, I'm going to trace them while they're busy stealing. They won't expect someone to follow them backward through their own attack. Marcus's young face lit up with the thrill of the hunt. It's like hide and seek, but with computers. He began what could only be described as digital stalking, following the hacker's connection through multiple servers and proxy networks. Each jump revealed another layer of the attacker's defenses, like peeling an onion made of code. Incredible, Dr. Carter murmured, watching the trace progress. He's using forensic techniques that usually require specialized law enforcement software. YouTube and video games teach you weird stuff, Marcus said with a shy smile, then immediately refocused. Got something. The hacker is routing through servers in 3 different countries, but one of them has really bad security. His fingers danced across the keyboard, exploiting vulnerabilities with the casual confidence of someone who'd been breaking into digital systems since he could read. I'm inside their relay server, he announced. Now I can see everything they're doing. And his smile faded. Oh no. What's wrong? Victoria leaned forward. This isn't just one person. It's a whole team. And they have files from lots of other companies too. Marcus scrolled through directories filled with stolen data. They've been doing this for years. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Whitmore Tech wasn't the first victim. This was an organized criminal enterprise that had been systematically destroying companies across the technology sector. Can you identify any of the other victims? Robert Hayes asked. Marcus clicked through folders with names like corporate raids and client destruction. TechFlow Industries, DataBridge Solutions, Cloud Sync Corporation. There's dozens of them. Victoria recognized several names. Companies that had mysteriously failed over the past 2 years. Cybersecurity incidents that had destroyed reputations overnight. Stock prices that had crashed due to technical glitches. They're not just thieves, she realized. They're corporate assassins. But Marcus had found something even more disturbing. The person running this whole thing, he said quietly. I think they used to work for you. The room went silent except for the humming of computer fans. What do you mean? Victoria asked. Marcus pulled up personnel files stolen from Whitmore Tech's own human resources database. They have inside information about your company that only employees would know. Password patterns, security procedures, who has access to what? He pointed to metadata on the stolen files. And look at this. Some of these documents were accessed using administrative credentials that belonged to... He paused, checking the user logs. Someone named Derek Morrison. Victoria's face went white. Derek was our head of cybersecurity. I fired him 8 months ago for incompetence. Well, he's been getting revenge ever since, Marcus said grimly, and he's really good at it now. The scope of Derek's operation was staggering. Not content with simple data theft, he'd been orchestrating the complete destruction of his former employer while building a criminal empire based on corporate espionage. This is way bigger than just fixing your computers, Marcus realized. This guy has been planning your company's destruction for months. The syntax error that crashed everything? He probably planted that months ago, just waiting for the right moment to activate it. As if summoned by the mention of his name, new activity exploded across every screen in the room. Derek had discovered their investigation and was launching a counterattack with the fury of someone whose master plan had been exposed. "He's wiping everything," Marcus said urgently. "Not just stealing now, destroying. All your customer data, all your backups, everything." Critical system alerts began flashing red throughout the room. Years of business data started vanishing in real time as Derek's malware ate through Whitmore Tech's digital infrastructure like acid. "Can you stop him?" Victoria asked desperately. Marcus stared at the chaos erupting across multiple monitors. For the first time since sitting down at the computer, he looked like what he was, a scared 10-year-old facing something much bigger than himself. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "He's really angry now, and he has tools I've never seen before. This isn't like the games anymore." Maria stepped forward from the corner where she'd been silently watching. "Marcus, baby, maybe we should let the police handle this." "Mom, if I stop now, he'll destroy everything," Marcus replied, his young voice heavy with responsibility. "All these people will lose their jobs. All those other companies he attacked, they'll never get justice." He looked up at Victoria with eyes that seemed far older than 10. "I have to try." But could a child really defeat a professional cybercriminal in direct digital combat? And what would Derek do when he realized his nemesis was someone he'd never even considered a threat? Marcus stared at the screen with the intensity of a detective solving a murder case. Derek's counterattack was fierce, but something about the patterns didn't make sense. "Wait a minute," Marcus said slowly, his small finger tracing lines of code. "This is weird." "What's weird?" Dr. Carter asked, leaning over to see what had caught the boy's attention. "The way he's deleting files." "It's too neat." Marcus pulled up system logs showing the destruction in progress. When people are angry and trying to hurt you, they usually just smash everything randomly. But look at this. He highlighted specific deletion patterns on the screen. He's only destroying certain types of files. Customer data, yes. Financial records, yes. But he's leaving some things alone. Victoria studied the data flows, not understanding what Marcus was seeing. What's he not deleting? Employee personal information, internal communications, meeting records. Marcus's young face grew more puzzled. It's like he wants some things to survive. David Park frowned. Why would a hacker care about preserving employee data during a revenge attack? Marcus continued analyzing Derek's digital assault, his gaming-trained pattern recognition skills working overtime. And another thing, he's not trying to hide what he's doing anymore. Before, he was super sneaky. Now he's being obvious about it. Maybe he just got careless because he's angry, Sarah Martinez suggested. No, Marcus shook his head decisively. He's too smart for that. Derek planned this whole thing for months. He wouldn't get sloppy now unless... The boy's eyes widened with realization. Unless he wants to get caught. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. You're saying this is all an act? Victoria asked. Marcus nodded grimly. I think Derek wants everyone to know he destroyed your company. He's not just stealing data. He's sending a message. To you, to other companies, maybe to other employees who might cross him. He pulled up communication logs that Derek had deliberately left intact. Look at these emails. He's been documenting everything he did to hurt Whitmore Tech. Like he's building a trophy case. Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. He wants other companies to know what happens when they fire him. Exactly. And that means... Marcus paused, his 10-year-old mind working through the terrifying logic. This isn't just about revenge anymore. He's advertising his services, showing potential clients what he can do. Corporate terrorism for hire, Robert Hayes said quietly. Marcus looked up from the screen with the grave expression of someone far older than his years. and we just became his most important demonstration. But if Derek wanted to be caught, what was his real endgame? And how do you fight an enemy who's already planning his next move? The screens around the room suddenly exploded with malicious code. Derek had abandoned all pretense of stealth and launched a full-scale digital assault that made his previous attacks look like gentle pranks. "He's not just deleting files anymore," Marcus said, his young voice tight with worry. "He's turning your computers into weapons." Every monitor displayed the same message in blood-red text. "Whitmore Tech dies today. Derek Morrison sends his regards." But worse than the taunting message was what came next. The company's entire customer database began broadcasting across the internet. Names, addresses, credit card information, social security numbers, millions of people's private data flooding onto public websites for everyone to see. "He's doxing our entire customer base," Victoria said in horror. "The lawsuits alone will destroy us even if we fix everything else." Marcus frantically tried to stop the data breach, his small fingers flying across the keyboard with desperate speed. But for every attack vector he blocked, Derek opened 2 more. "I can't keep up," Marcus admitted, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air-conditioned room. "He's using automated tools to attack from hundreds of different places at once. It's like fighting an army by yourself." Dr. Carter attempted to help, but his traditional cybersecurity methods were useless against Derek's unconventional assault. "This isn't standard hacking," he said helplessly. "This is digital terrorism." The attacks escalated beyond anything anyone had imagined possible. Derek began targeting other companies that did business with Whitmore Tech, spreading the destruction like a contagious disease. Banking partners, software vendors, client companies, all of them received the same treatment: data theft, system crashes, public humiliation. "He's trying to make sure no one will ever work with us again," Victoria realized. "Even if we survive this, we'll be toxic in the industry." Marcus stared at screens filled with cascading system failures, his usual confidence cracking for the first time. "I'm just a kid," he said quietly. "I learned this stuff from games and YouTube videos. Derek went to college for this. He has professional tools and years of experience." The weight of responsibility seemed to crash down on his small shoulders. 3,000 jobs, millions of customers. An entire company's survival rests on a 10-year-old's ability to outfight a seasoned cyber criminal. "Maybe I should stop," Marcus whispered, "before I make things worse." Maria stepped forward from her corner, kneeling beside her son's chair. "Marcus, baby, you don't have to do this. These grown-ups can find another way." But even as she spoke, they all knew there was no other way. The traditional experts had failed completely. The boy was their only hope, and he was losing. Derek seemed to sense Marcus's moment of doubt, because his attacks intensified even further. Company servers began physically overheating from the strain. Fire alarms started triggering throughout the building. The digital assault was becoming a real-world emergency. "System integrity failing," the computer announced in its maddeningly calm voice. "Critical infrastructure compromised. Recommend immediate evacuation." Victoria looked around the room at her team of expensive experts, all of them rendered useless by a problem they couldn't solve. Then she looked at Marcus, a scared little boy who'd tried his best against impossible odds. "It's okay," she told him gently. "You did more than anyone could have asked. No one will blame you for—" "Wait." Marcus suddenly sat up straighter, wiping his eyes. "Derek made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" Victoria asked. Marcus pointed to the chaos on his screen with renewed focus. "He's so busy attacking everything at once that he forgot the most important rule of hacking." The boy's voice grew stronger. "Never leave your back door open when you're fighting someone." A spark of hope flickered in the room. "While he's busy destroying your stuff, he's not protecting his own systems." Marcus's fingers moved toward the keyboard with new determination. "And I know exactly where he's hiding." But did a 10-year-old really have one more trick left? And would it be enough to stop a professional cybercriminal bent on total destruction? Marcus took a deep breath and cracked his knuckles one more time. The gesture no longer looked childish. It looked like a warrior preparing for battle. "Derek thinks he's safe because he's attacking from so many different places," Marcus said, his young voice steady with newfound confidence. "But that's actually his weakness. He has to control all those attacks from somewhere central." His fingers began moving across the keyboard with a precision that defied his age. While Derek's automated weapons continued their assault on Whitmore Tech's systems, Marcus quietly began his counterattack. "I'm going to trace his command signals backward," he explained while typing, "like following footprints in the snow, but with computer code." Dr. Carter watched in amazement as Marcus navigated through layers of digital deception that would have taken professional hackers hours to unravel. "How are you doing that so fast?" "Video games taught me to think in 3D, Marcus replied matter-of-factly. "Derek is hiding his real location behind fake servers, but I can see the pattern. It's like a maze, and I'm really good at mazes." Within minutes, Marcus had traced Derek's attacks to their source, a server farm in downtown Miami that Derek was using as his command center. "Found him," Marcus announced. "Now for the fun part." Instead of trying to block Derek's attacks, Marcus did something unexpected. He began redirecting them. "What are you doing?" Victoria asked as she watched code flowing across the screen in patterns she couldn't understand. "Derek is using your own servers to attack other companies," Marcus explained while his fingers danced across the keys. "But computer attacks work both ways. If I can flip his weapons around..." The effect was immediate and devastating. Derek's automated assault tools, designed to destroy Whitmore Tech's data, suddenly turned on their creator. His command servers began experiencing the same crashes, deletions, and system failures he'd been inflicting on his victims. "You're using his own weapons against him," David Park said in wonder. "Exactly. He taught his programs to be really good at breaking computers, so I'm letting them practice on his computer instead." But Derek wasn't helpless. Within moments, he'd realized what was happening and began fighting back directly. The screens filled with a real-time digital duel as professional cybercriminal met 10-year-old prodigy in direct combat. Derek tried to regain control of his attack tools. Marcus deflected every attempt and sent more of Derek's own malware back at him. Derek opened new attack vectors. Marcus closed them and opened counterattacks. Derek deployed advanced encryption to protect his systems. Marcus cracked it using techniques he'd learned from puzzle games. "This is incredible," Sarah Martinez whispered. "It's like watching chess played at the speed of light." The battle raged across cyberspace for 23 minutes. Derek threw everything he had at the mysterious defender who was dismantling his empire piece by piece. Professional hacking tools, military-grade malware, corporate espionage techniques refined over years of criminal activity. Marcus countered each attack with gaming logic, YouTube tutorials, and the fearless creativity of childhood. Where Derek relied on established methods, Marcus improvised. Where Derek followed rules, Marcus broke them. "He's getting desperate," Marcus observed as Derek's attacks became more erratic. "When you're losing at a video game, you start button mashing instead of thinking." Derek made his fatal mistake at 3:47 a.m. In his fury at being defeated by an unknown opponent, he opened a direct communication channel to taunt his adversary. "Who are you?" appeared on Marcus's screen in angry capital letters. "Show yourself, coward!" Marcus looked up at Victoria with a mischievous grin that reminded everyone he was still just a kid. "Should I tell him?" "Tell him," Victoria said with grim satisfaction. Marcus typed a simple response. "Hi, Derek. I'm Marcus Washington. I'm 10 years old and I learned to code from YouTube. My mom cleans Ms. Victoria's house." The silence from Derek's end was deafening. Then came an explosion of profanity and threats that the adults quickly shielded Marcus from seeing. Derek's professional composure completely shattered at the realization that his elaborate revenge scheme had been unraveled by a child. But his rage made him careless. The communication channel he'd opened to threaten Marcus also revealed his exact physical location. Not just the server farm he was using, but the specific building, floor, and room where he was sitting. "Got him," Marcus said simply. "Should I call the police, or do you want to?" Victoria was already dialing. "FBI Cybercrime Unit," she said when the call connected. "We have the location of a major cybercriminal who's been attacking companies across the country." While Victoria coordinated with law enforcement, Marcus put the finishing touches on his victory. Derek's stolen data was recovered and returned to its rightful owners. His attack tools were disabled. His criminal network was exposed and mapped for prosecution. Most importantly, all of Derek's victims, not just Whitmore Tech but dozens of other companies he'd destroyed, finally had evidence of what had really happened to them. "The FBI says they're raiding his location now," Victoria announced, hanging up her phone. "They also want to interview our consultant." She looked down at Marcus, who was now slumped in his chair with the exhaustion of someone who'd just fought the battle of his life. "Marcus," Victoria said softly, "do you understand what you just did?" The boy nodded tiredly. "I helped catch a really bad person who was hurting lots of families. You saved my company. You saved 3,000 jobs. You brought justice to dozens of other victims." Victoria's voice was thick with emotion. "And you did it all while everyone underestimated you." Marcus looked up at her with eyes that seemed much older than 10. Adults always think kids can't do important things. But computers don't care how old you are. They just care if you understand them. Dr. Carter, who had been humbled into silence, finally spoke. "Marcus, in 30 years of cybersecurity, I've never seen anything like what you just did. Would you be willing to teach me some of those techniques?" Marcus brightened immediately. "Really? You want to learn from me?" "I think we all do," Victoria said, looking around the room at her team of expensive experts who'd been outperformed by a child with a library card and internet access. But their celebration was interrupted by Marcus's mother, who'd been watching the entire digital battle with growing amazement and terror. "Marcus Washington," Maria said in the tone that all children recognize as serious trouble, "we are going to have a very long talk about what you've been doing on the computer. What would happen next would surprise everyone even more than what they'd already witnessed." The FBI raid was swift and decisive. Within an hour, Derek Morrison was in federal custody, his computers seized, his criminal network exposed. But as Marcus helped the agents understand the technical evidence, they discovered something that stunned everyone. "This goes way deeper than one angry ex-employee," Special Agent Jennifer Walsh said, reviewing the files Marcus had recovered from Derek's servers. "Morrison was working for someone else." She pulled up financial records showing payments to Derek from a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. "He's been receiving $200,000 per month to target specific tech companies. This wasn't random revenge, this was corporate warfare for hire." Victoria felt her blood run cold. "Someone paid him to destroy us?" "Paid him to destroy dozens of companies," Agent Walsh confirmed. "And according to these communications, the client was very specific about timing. They wanted Whitmore Tech taken down right before your IPO announcement next month." Marcus, still sitting at his computer despite his mother's protests about staying up all night, pulled up more of Derek's recovered files. "There's a list here," he said quietly. "All the companies Derek attacked. And next to each one it says how much their stock price dropped after the attack." The pattern was unmistakable. Every targeted company had been on the verge of major growth. New product launches, merger announcements, public offerings. All of them had been destroyed at precisely the moment when their failure would cause maximum financial damage. "Someone's been manipulating the entire tech market," Agent Walsh realized. "Destroying companies to depress stock prices, then probably buying them up for pennies on the dollar." But the most shocking discovery came when Marcus found Derek's communication logs with his mysterious employer. "The person paying Derek," Marcus said, his young voice barely above a whisper, "they knew about me." He showed them a message dated just 2 hours earlier. The child is more dangerous than anticipated. Increased timeline. Full destruction protocol immediately. The room went silent as the implications sank in. Derek's desperate final assault hadn't been random fury at being outmatched by a 10-year-old. It had been ordered by someone who understood exactly what Marcus was capable of and saw him as a threat to a much larger operation. "Marcus," Agent Walsh said seriously, "you didn't just catch one cybercriminal. You exposed an entire conspiracy, and they know who you are now." 6 months later, Marcus Washington sat in the witness chair of a congressional hearing room, wearing his best shirt and still swinging his legs because his feet didn't quite reach the floor. "Mr. Washington," the committee chairwoman said with a gentle smile, "can you tell the American people how a 10-year-old learned to fight cybercriminals?" "YouTube, mostly," Marcus replied into the microphone, causing a ripple of laughter through the packed hearing room. "And video games taught me to think about problems differently than grown-ups do." The investigation Marcus had sparked led to the arrest of 12 conspirators in what the FBI called the largest corporate cyber warfare ring in American history. 43 companies had been targeted. Over $2.8 billion in artificial stock manipulation had been exposed. Hundreds of thousands of jobs had been saved. Victoria Whitmore, now sitting at the witness table beside Marcus, addressed the committee with barely contained emotion. "6 months ago, I almost destroyed my own company because I couldn't see past my prejudices about age and background. Marcus Washington didn't just save Whitmore Tech. He taught me that brilliance comes from places we never think to look." The Whitmore Foundation had already provided full college scholarships to 300 underprivileged children interested in technology. Marcus's story had inspired thousands of kids to start coding, proving that learning doesn't require expensive schools or perfect credentials. Agent Walsh testified about Marcus's continued consulting work with the FBI. "This young man has helped us solve 17 major cybercrime cases. His unconventional approach sees patterns that traditional investigators miss." Marcus leaned toward his microphone one final time. "I just want other kids to know that being different isn't bad. Maybe you learn things in ways that adults don't understand. Maybe you see solutions they can't see. That doesn't make you wrong. That makes you special." The little boy who'd once been dismissed as irrelevant had changed an industry, exposed corruption, and proved that genius recognizes no boundaries. Have you ever underestimated someone because of their age, background, or appearance? Share this story if you believe talent deserves recognition regardless of where it comes from. Comment below about a time when someone surprised you with their abilities. And remember, the next breakthrough might come from the person you least expect. Subscribe if you want more stories about underdogs who changed the world.